State of the Union interrupted by a screaming Marjorie Taylor Greene and other Republicans. Joe Biden looked unprepared, and I have a problem with that. Here it is.
Instead of making the wealthy pay their fair share, some Republicans want Medicare and Social Security to sunset. I'm not saying it's a majority. Let me give you, anybody who doubts it, contact my office. I'll give you a copy. I'll give you a copy of the proposal. That means Congress doesn't vote. Well, I'm glad to see you. No, I tell you, I enjoy conversion. You know, it means if Congress doesn't keep the programs the way they are, they'd go away. Other Republicans say, I'm not saying it's a majority of you. I don't even think it's even a significant, but it's being proposed by individuals. I'm not politely not naming them, but it's being proposed by some of you. Look, folks, the idea is that we're not going to be moved into being threatened to default on the debt if we don't respond.
This is out of damn control. Now, naturally, Marjorie Taylor Greene and the Republican cronies were out of order. No question about it. Remember, this kind of started when President Barack Obama was in office. He gave his State of the Union. A Republican yells, "You liar." Remember that? Okay. We are continuing the de-evolution of our political brand. So this thing goes down. It is important to note what President Biden was talking about. He was referring to your money, my money, being paid into their system called government, and then us being able to get access to our money again. Yeah. Now, according to President Biden, some Republicans have proposed to get rid of these Hallmark programs. I believe him. I believe Joe Biden is telling the truth. I think some Republicans have. As a matter of fact, Republicans are on record for actually cutting programs like this. Not a mystery what side they're on. But the reality after the proclamation should have been simple. Sharing who submitted it. As a matter of fact, if I was president of the United States, I would have already had it online. So as soon as a Republican has something to say, I would have said, go to www. Wherever the hell I just posted it online. He seemed unprepared. He seemed as if he didn't know that was going to come. The Republicans were not upset at other Republicans who proposed to do something so insane against the American public. They were upset that Joe Biden brought it up. And it seems as if Biden wanted to be courteous. He wanted to be polite. So because he wants to be so polite, he's not going to share whoever proposed this disastrous plan. Does that make sense? No. Because, Mr. President, individuals are sending you proposals to get rid of these programs that help everyday Americans. Those people are against Americans. And sir, why would they send it to you, of all people? I have a question. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene, the individual who decided to act exactly like she was looking that night, said this.
I will tell you one thing Joe Biden did lie about. He didn't know what he was talking about a lot of the time, but he did frankly lie. Talking about Republicans and Social Security and Medicare. We have not talked about cutting Social Security and Medicare. Joe Biden has been claiming that we're gonna cut Social Security and Medicare, but we're not. So we called him out on the House floor. I called him a liar because that's what Joe Biden is. Either he doesn't know what he's talking about or he's just flat out lying.
President Biden, this is why we need names, sir. We need names. You could have polarized them. There's a strategy, a style connected to politics. You signed up for this job. You're in the industry. You know how to execute. You understand the game. In that moment, you could have polarized them with a simple thing. It is called truth and facts. You could have won it with truth and facts in that moment. Now, overall, the speech was okay. Not heavy on the deliverables, in my opinion, but it also highlighted this reality. Democrats do have winning messages. They just don't know how to do it. They do have winning strategies. They just do not implement. All right, let's go ahead and get into the shenanigans. Even before the State of the Union, Marjorie Taylor Greene was doing this. Let's put it up full mass. Yes, walking around with a big white balloon. She appeared ready with a State of the Union stunt on Tuesday, patrolling the halls of Congress with a large white balloon in reference to Republican criticism of the Joe Biden debacle connected to the Chinese spy balloon. I do believe the administration lacked precision on that. Just an innocent white balloon, everybody, the Georgia extremist said, hours before Biden's address to Congress, attempting to keep aloft the balloon saga, which ended when it was shot down off the Carolinas. That was Saturday. Greene did not discuss, however, the Pentagon and their disclosure that count them, 3 Chinese balloons passed over the US during the presidency of Donald Trump, only for the Trump administration to fail to spot them. Biden's national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, told reporters earlier improvements to surveillance under Biden enhanced our capacity to be able to detect things that the Trump administration was unable to detect. Let's put Marjorie Taylor Greene's picture up again. I want to show you a contrasting strategy. You see that? She's doing that because she has no solutions. She has no policy agenda to push. She has nothing that people actually like from her office. None. But she does have the style that they like. She does submit insanity on top of insanity. And when you have indoctrinated a particular political class to think that is a solution, that is helpful, then you continue to feed them. They have lowered the bar so much that people who support them don't talk about policy anymore. Remember, Republicans stopped talking about policy a long time ago. Now, those who support them barely talk about policy themselves. They talk about things like that. All right, McCarthy accused Biden of deliberately, intentionally trying to elicit angry reactions from Republicans. Isn't that something? But he also said Republicans needed to do a better job of resisting the temptation to lash out. He tries to use that for a political ploy, but the one thing we need to be is we need to be smart, he said. We need to be smart, don't take the bait, stay with the American public about what we want to do. Interesting. McCarthy is blaming Biden. Biden stumbled into that, everyone knows it. Okay, this was not some strategy that Biden created. I wish it was, but it wasn't. It was a fumble. McCarthy, understanding that most Americans are sick and tired of the Trump style of politics, realizes that Marjorie Taylor Greene may actually start to create dissension between Republicans and voters. It is fascinating. I do think this was a missed opportunity in that moment, but we have someone who can talk about the Chinese spy balloon and this as well. Ben, I got questions, all right? So number one, how in the hell did an aircraft from China come over the ocean, get into our airspace and over our land without being shot down over the water first? And two, what could Biden have done in that moment to put the emphasis back on Republicans for their adversarial stance against everyday Americans?
Yeah, most definitely. Okay, so I guess I'll start with the balloon. I genuinely do not think it was a spy balloon. I look, as somebody that has worked in the intel community before, like my guess is that somebody saw it randomly, thought it was suspicious, and just said, "Oh, probable spy balloon," or something along those lines. It said, "Oh, it could be." And then, higher ups decided to make an international incident out of it. From what I've seen, there's no real reason to believe it was anything other than like a typical like weather balloon, like because balloons are really hard to control, especially like up in the jet stream. Like if you're talking like 66,000 feet, it's literally even above the ozone layer, right? And so it's very, very high up. It's very, very high up. And that's not something that you can like very easily control. And so like we just also know that there's like a lot of like scientific like experiments that are really useful to do up in the atmosphere to monitor like climate change and stuff like that. So like in this instance, I actually think that China is the more trustworthy source when they say it's a weather balloon, simply because like we have satellites and they have satellites. Why would they put something within our airspace that could be shot down in the first place? So my guess is that the reason why these things weren't like, a big international incident before is just because people just assumed that they were weather balloons, because that is what makes the most amount of sense. I mean, once again, if you can't control the balloon, then you're not gonna get imagery of a particular area. You're just gonna get random imagery like over a line of the country. So it just doesn't make any sense. So that's just like a random aside with like the balloon thing. And so that's kind of why I think there's a bigger deal there. And I actually think that Biden fumbled it a little bit by like pressing so hard and like saying, "Oh, it's a spy balloon," and leaning into that instead of being like, "No, this doesn't really make any sense." But I get it. Like from an official government standpoint, we don't like to admit that we spy on people, and we don't like to admit that other countries are spying on us. We all know though, everybody's spying on each other, and like, that's just the reality of the world. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's just the reality of the world. But when it comes to like Joe Biden's response to like getting heckled by these Republicans, I mean, like, it's not that Joe Biden's incapable of responding to hecklers, right? Like we saw Joe Biden on the campaign trail when you had Black Lives Matter protesters, when you had like indigenous folks, when you had like undocumented folks like coming to Joe Biden saying, "What are you gonna do about these things?" He was like, "Listen up here, Jack. You're this, that, and the other thing." Right? Where is that energy for the Republicans, right? Where's he like, "Listen up here, Jack. I saw the bill that you put that would like replace all income taxes with a sales tax. That would have destroyed Social Security. That would have destroyed Medicare. You know exactly what you're doing." Like that's what should have happened. But somehow, like it's kid gloves with the Republicans. But when like he's being criticized from the left, then it's not. And so like that really just speaks to, I think, a character flaw in Joe Biden, because fundamentally he's not willing to put that energy towards us. And then with like the Republican shenanigans about this is exactly what you'd expect from the Republicans. In the very same way that Republicans will freak out if you call them racist, like they'll be racist, they'll do racist things, and they don't find racist things offensive. But if you call them the word racist, they will like freak out like you have done some sort of like egregious offense against them. This is that same exact mentality. It's that like, they have this mentality of, I should be able to do whatever I want. And if you call out my behavior, that is what's rude. That is what's uncouth. That is what is intolerable, right? It's not my behavior that is leading to people calling me racist. It's not my behavior that are leading people to call me a liar. It's you calling me a liar that made that a problem. Racism doesn't exist if nobody ever gets called a racist, apparently, in the mind of these Republicans. And that's just the exact same behavior. And so, like fundamentally, like the whole idea of Kevin McCarthy saying like, "Oh, we shouldn't take the bait," that's literally the only thing the Republican does, is they will create fake bait to take. I mean, literally, like they were freaking out over gay M&Ms like, a week ago. Like, are we really gonna pretend that they weren't gonna like be kicking and screaming over Joe Biden calling them out in the State of the Union address? And it wasn't even like a particularly good call out, as you noted. And so I just want to see more energy from Joe Biden with that, like, "Listen up here, Jack. We know who you are. Here's the names of the Republicans. If Republicans disavow this, then why don't you disavow the members that are doing this?"
There you go. And if that doesn't work, I'm calling Corn Pop.